polling stations in Brazil's paramount general elections begin to close, voting will be extended until all those in lines at voting centers cast their ballots. Vote counting is underway. Hurricane Orlene strengthens to Category 4 and continues its path along Mexican Pacific coast. A delegation of members of the German Bundestag arrived in Taiwan in defiance of Beijing's One China policy and its sovereignty over the island. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Most polling stations in Brazil's paramount general elections are now closed. However, voting is extended until all those in lines at voting centers cast their ballots. Vote counting is underway. Around 156 million people in Brazil were called to elect the next president of the country. In addition to the head of state, voters also voted for the future vice president, 27 governors, 513 deputies, 27 senators, and regional deputies. According to the National Electoral Tribunal, the presidential elections in Brazil progressed normally, with large turnout and low abstentionism. The main candidates for the presidency cast their vote. Presidential candidate Lula da Silva said, "We want a country that lives in peace with hope and believes in the future." Vote counting is underway in some polling stations. Figures show current President Jair Bolsonaro leading the votes with 46.84% of the votes, followed by former President Luis Ignacio da Silva with 44.32%. These are the first preliminary results. 44.17% of ballots have been counted. Voting still continues in some polling stations across the nation. Preliminary turnout stands at 79.36%. In the framework of the presidential election day, the candidate for the Workers' Party, Luis Ignacio da Silva, stressed the importance of the electoral day that takes place in the country.
Today is the most important day for me. I have to say that 4 years ago, I could not vote because I had been the victim of a lie in this country, and I was kept in a federal police exactly on election day.
The presidential candidate Luis Ignacio da Silva expressed his confidence in the possibility of returning to office as president of Brazil, while reiterating his commitment to work with the goal of returning stability to the country.
4 years later, I'm here voting, with a recognition of my freedom and the possibility of being president of this country again, to try to get Brazil back to normal.
In Brazil, the presidential elections are officially over and the counting of votes has begun. The political parties and the citizens await the results. Amid tensions, our correspondent Brian Meir brings us the details.
All voting in Brazil's 2022 elections has officially ended as of 5 p.m. and former President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva is in the hotel behind me with his closest friends and family members, waiting for the results of the vote tally, which could take as little as 3 or 4 hours. Former President Jair Bolsonaro voted in Rio de Janeiro today and immediately flew back to Brasilia, where he's waiting for the results. The big question is, was Lula able to gain enough momentum to win the election in the first round? Several polls had him within the range of a possible 50% plus one that would give him victory. Regardless of what happens, the social movements and unions are going to go out to Paulista Avenue in downtown Sao Paulo as soon as the results are announced to take to the streets and celebrate, whether it's a first round victory or just a simple victory that will carry the election to a vote off, a runoff at the end of October between the top two candidates who are presumed to be Lula and current President Jair Bolsonaro. So the mood here is tense, but all people can do now is just wait and see what happens. And the next couple hours are going to be pretty hard for millions of people here in Brazil.
In an earlier report, the president of the Supreme Electoral Court of Brazil, Alexandre de Moraes, assured that the elections have taken place normally.
We are almost 2 hours or a little less than 2 hours from the closure of the electoral process. As we have already said, during all this voting time, it has been conducted in a calm, harmonious manner. The voters have normally gone to the polls, to electoral sections.
Alexandre Moraes recalled that the weapon of voters is the vote.
I repeat, voters' weapon is the vote. and does not mean that in election day there's a greater crowd of people. People can't go out there to practice shooting. They have other days for that, and I think people understood that very well.
Alexandre Moraes, president of the electoral body of Brazil, said that the agency will disseminate ballot boxes on social networks to verify the elections.
TSE from 5 o'clock, we will be divulging all ballot sheets on social networks so that all people of all the audit institutions can have full access and eventually make the Zoom and verify the elections.
In Colombia, at least 22 people were injured, including 8 minors, after an explosion that occurred in a gas tank. The event took place in the municipality of Barrancabermeja, department of Santander, during the night of this Saturday in the facilities of a company that is dedicated to the sale and distribution of gas cylinders. The mayor's office of Barrancabermeja declared the hospital on yellow alert to activate all the emergency units of the healthcare centers of the city. Local authorities reported that the causes of the explosions are currently unknown, so investigations are ongoing. We're going to take a short break now, but first, remember you can now follow us on TikTok account at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. More news coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. Hurricane Orlene strengthens to Category 4 on its way to the Mexican Pacific coast. According to the Mexican National Meteorological Service, Orlene is located about 170 kilometers southwest of Cabo Corrientes, Jalisco State. In addition, they indicated that it remains on a steady course north at a speed of 11 kilometers per hour. Meteorologists predict winds of up to 215 kilometers per hour and waves of 3 to 5 meters. Experts predict that the hurricane will touch the Mexican coast this Monday night, so it is maintained as a prevention zone by hurricane effects from the state of Nayarit to Sinaloa. President Miguel Diaz-Canel and other members of the Cuban executive branch held a new meeting this Saturday with regional authorities where they agreed to concentrate efforts, especially in the recovery of Pinal del Rio and Artemisa, two of the areas most affected by Hurricane Ian. The national authorities and the Cuban Revolutionary Armed Forces are working tirelessly with local governments to recover normality in the areas most affected by the Category 3 hurricane, which caused serious damage, especially in the western part of the country. Various issues were reviewed regarding the recovery of the electric power system. The Minister Livan Arronte informed that several power plants are already operative. President Miguel Diaz-Canel urged the need to focus on education a few hours before the start of academic activities in the areas affected by Hurricane Ian.
It's important to start the course because it's further step towards normality, and it also allows family planning because people already have their children in school. They join the recovery task, they get back to work. That's very important to take it into account.
On Sunday, several areas in northern Thailand remain underwater due to rising rivers caused by heavy rainfall from Typhoon Noru as it downgraded to a tropical storm. The rains will continue for one more day, so it will take time for waters to recede in the Asian country. The Pathum Thani Provincial Administration declared Samkok District a flood disaster area. More than 5,000 homes are flooded and many residents are using boats to travel from their homes to higher ground. Local authorities reported that 11 routes to the north of the country are blocked, and in Pichit province more than 200 homes are flooded by water rushing down from the Petchabun mountain range. On Sunday, the government of Denmark confirmed the stabilization of pressure in Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline as a result of the cessation of leaks. The Danish Energy Agency said in a statement that the operator Nord Stream AG has notified that the leaks in the pipeline are over and that the two branches of Nord Stream 1 are stable. Both gas pipelines suffered ruptures still unexplained on September 26, and the governments of several countries considered it an act of sabotage. In this sense, the Russian representative to the UN, Vasily Nebensia, denounced that the ruptures benefit the US and detailed that the acts of sabotage are being investigated by the Russian Federal Security Service for international terrorism. In Europe, 9 member countries of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization this Sunday expressed their support for the incorporation of Ukraine into this alliance. In a joint declaration published by the Presidency of Romania, these Central and Eastern European nations reiterate their strong support for the decision of the 2008 NATO summit in Bucharest on the future accession of Ukraine. At the same time, they urged Russia to withdraw from all Ukrainian territories and encourage all NATO members to substantially increase their military aid to Kiev. The Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky reported on September 30th on a request addressed the international organization through which he was asked to carry out the incorporation of his country into NATO by the fast track. However, that agency indicated that Kiev needs to meet a number of criteria to join. In Spain, authorities reported this Sunday they found 4 bodies in a boat of migrants on the coast of the Canary Islands. The Marine Rescue Corps reported that the ship Miguel de Cervantes recovered the bodies of the deceased in a pneumatic drift, located about 150 kilometers southwest of the Canary Archipelago. The authorities also pointed out that in the boat only a 27-year-old boy was found, originally from Ivory Coast, and it was detected by a merchant ship and had to be evacuated by helicopter. The authorities also stated that the vessel consisted of at least 34 crew members, of whom 29 drowned. This event adds to the list of shipwrecks of 2022, where around 978 people died trying to reach Spain. In Russia, the Constitutional Court endorsed the accession of the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics and the Kherson and Zaporizhia provinces as new federated entities. The entity explained that there will be a transition until January 1, 2026 for the full integration of the new territories into the economic, financial and legal system of the Russian Federation. The measure is a step after the formalization of the accession protocols by President Vladimir Putin and the leaders of the 4 regions. Moscow asserted that this process guarantees the security of citizens and will stop the attacks that the Ukrainian government carries out with the weapons supplied by the United States and its allies. More news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. On Sunday, a delegation of members of the German Bundestag arrived in Taiwan in defiance of Beijing's One China policy and its sovereignty over the island. According to official reports, the 6 members of the German Bundestag, headed by Klaus-Peter Wilsch, are expected to hold talks with all of Taiwan's politicians, including the island's leader, Tsai Ing-wen. Also, Germany's representative to the Straits, Jörg Pulser, said that the trip is aimed at boosting Berlin's diplomatic and economic ties with Taipei. For his part, Taiwan's de facto ambassador to Berlin, Ji Wei-xie, said he invited German parliamentarians to visit the island. On Saturday, Chad delegates agreed on a 2-year extension of the transitional period, setting the date for democratic elections for late 2024. The decision was taken during a National Reconciliation Dialogue Forum between delegates and junta leader Mahamat Idris Deby Itno. Hundreds of delegates think that Deby would not only continue as transitional president but be eligible to run for the presidency when elections are held. However, political experts consider this agreement will face resistance from political parties, civil society, regional bodies, as well as the US and the European Union. Thousands of people gathered at Gelora Bung Karno Stadium in Jakarta for a candlelight vigil honoring victims in Indonesia's deadly stampede, which has become one of the world's worst sporting disasters. At least 125 people died at an Indonesian football stadium when thousands of angry home fans invaded the pitch and police responded with tear gas that triggered a stampede, authorities said Sunday. The tragedy on Saturday night in the city of Malang, which also left 323 injured according to police, was one of the world's deadliest sporting stadium disasters. Arema Football Club supporters at the Kanjuruhan Stadium stormed the pitch after their team lost 3-2 to the visiting team and bitter rivals, Persebaya Surabaya. On Sunday, New Zealand's Museum Te Papa Tongarewa received the remains of dozens of indigenous Maori returned from Austria. The welcoming ceremony concluded when the remains of some 64 Maori indigenous people of the main islands of New Zealand and Chatham were taken to the Rongo Mare Ora Marae, a sacred site for Polynesian societies. Both countries materializes a process of repatriation of remains of indigenous Maori from Austria, where they were for more than 130 years. Records show that most of the bones were collected by Austrian taxidermist and undertaker Andreas Reichek, who toured New Zealand for 12 years until 1889. In Kenya, President William Ruto said he will advocate national unity and stressed that no part of the country will be left out in terms of development. The Kenyan head of state reiterated that the time of political competition was over and pointed out that now was the time to work for the country. The president explained that among the government plans are planned the improvements of roads, the construction of 5,000 homes down to the coast for the population, and the repair of the sewerage and water systems in the city. Ruto maintains a conciliatory tone towards the leaders who oppose the results that made him the fifth president of Kenya after independence in 1963. We have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.